There is no important way of learning than doing something.
What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. And what I do, I learn.
We come from a tradition of chalk and board, where you simply stand for the board and you lecture.
When students work together as a group, they are able to learn from each other, they are able to impart skills to each other.
This course, MRPP, is unique in the sense that the methodology for inculcating the knowledge is actually through some innovative methodology of using e-cases, role play, and multimedia sources, which is more simplified and more captivating.
The role plays are really well done in class. They help us, they enable us understand content.
Now, how do you write role plays? The first thing is you define your pedagogical goals. That means you have to think about what message do you want to get across. Okay. Second thing, you define the setting of your play. In other words, what kind of a situation are we in? In which country are we? In which institution are we? And so forth. And you define the roles. And then you have to write the scripts for these roles. In other words, you have to give students prior information on who they are and what they want. So you define what their role actually is. And it's very good and very helpful for students to build in a tension between the two.
Quickly, within less than a minute, write to me what you see. Just write the very first thing you see. Margaret, 2 animals. This side, what do you see?
I can see the head of a lady.
You can see the head of a lady. What kind of a lady? Young. You can see many things in this photograph. And that is the essence of communication. It is not what is intended to be communicated. It is what you receive at the end of that communication that matters. So even as a teacher, what you imagine you are telling the students is not exactly what they're hearing.
Good afternoon, class.
Good afternoon, teacher.
Good. What we are going to be doing today is to listen to students who have done their researches and who have also written their policy briefs. They were required, to pick a policy issue. The problems that Kenyan airline is facing.
I'm here to share with you my findings on how we can bring Kenya Airways to profitability.
Minister for Transport and Infrastructure.
This is a public items. We have a stake in the airline. And so we can't just sit and see the airline dying.
Now, taxpayers of this country, in as much as they are proud of supporting Kenya Airways, are getting a little bit tired of bailing out Kenya Airways.
Let's listen to Professor Gladys, representative of the shareholders.
The CEO here, Mr. Okere, has just mentioned that. However, one of the most interesting things is that he only covers the reasons for losses that do not necessarily implicate the management.
I have a problem with the management of Kenya Airways. The top officer just told us here that the staff are well qualified, but do paper qualifications really determine performance? It is clear they don't have problem-solving skills.
These losses, are they really a sustained trend or market noise? Because it could be that what you see is market noise, not really something that you could sustain over a long time.
You have multiple suggestions, and each of those suggestions should have been anchored on the rationale. Why would you want government to go this direction?
My experience with politicians and with top government officials is that they don't have time to read. If you are able to articulate, not just verbally, but also a policy brief, very, very concise, but captures all the basic elements, often they can then invite you for further discussions.
What your policy brief is doing boils down to what? Making a persuasive argument. What are the policy implications of the problem you're describing? 5 to 10% is the methodology. Just give a brief description of the nature of research you did. We did research in this locality, okay? And demonstrate it was appropriate. Then your results and conclusions are important, because you said this that I am offering, this policy option is based on research that we've conducted, and the research showed this result. Provide firm evidence from a diversity of sources. That's important. Then convince the reader that the problem must be addressed urgently. And you need, if you were evaluating, you say, well, if I was a policy maker, would this stimulate me to make a decision? Is this a focused policy brief? Use professional rather than academic language. Also, help with useful pull-out boxes. It could be a quote, it could be an aside, kind of like a sidebar. And of course, by all means, include graphs if they are helpful but simple. So that's how I would evaluate it for my students, and we should get them to do it so that we can engage them in that manner.
We'll try and see if we can use a role play to help ourselves to understand how neoliberalism and then democratic social democracy could help sustain equity and social justice.
So this panel is conveyed to seek the opinions and the way forward. So the first issue I'm going to table on the floor for discussion is, how do we promote economic growth as a country?
The government can intervene, but to very, very little scale.
Well, I do not agree. I think that government should be the drivers of the economy.
Governments don't produce wealth. They tax and fund budgets. It is the private sector that does business.
In terms of employment, the government must make sure that that is also equitably spread.
Thank you very much, honorable ministers from the Federal Republic of Nigeria and then the Republic of Ghana. We have had a very wonderful session for the past 1 week. Within the next 15 minutes, we'll issue a communique. Thank you very much.
The focus when we're dealing with gender has been women, because in many societies in the contemporary period, in the post-colonial context, the women, the female population is the one that has been more consistently marginalized.
The role play that we are using focuses on gender equality.
You need to put laws, regulations that will really ensure that women can be on the forefront of climate change.
It takes two to tango. Women are supposed to be the fulcrum, but from what we see, there's no equality.
I think this government didn't organize this conference, and we didn't determine who should come.
Adults learn if they're involved. They learn if they're given an opportunity to bring in the class their experiences, their opinion, the kind of things that they do on a daily basis. So case methodology combines all these. It gives participants an opportunity to control the learning.
We have a case, universal primary education in Uganda. Who will lead us off?
The original recommendation was that given the cost, they should have 4 children in each family to participate in the program.
But actually looking at the African dynamics, now the challenge was, because the original recommendation was 2 girls and 2 boys, now you find some families, they don't have boys.
So people who had maybe 1 wife will now take the second wife.
You are the first democratically elected mayor of the city of La Paz. How would you go about managing these affairs?
The first thing you do is block the leaking pipe. Begin to replace them.
And you start your action.
They will not attack you.
They will not attack you. When you fire the cashier, they know why the cashier is biting the dust.
Having them accountable.
Yes.
And having them bring back what they have taken away from the national treasure, from the treasure of the city, is also very key.
I like that. Especially the part of having women on your side is a very good one. Yes,
sir. Cases provide a basis for participants to delve into real-life issues, to analyze, to interpret, to synthesize knowledge.
The minute you're born with certain biological identification, you are set to have a certain trajectory in terms of your life experience, in terms of educational opportunities, in terms of what you expected to achieve. The fact that people who have certain capacity are not given the opportunity, the same resources, the same platform, they are shut off in areas where they could enlighten the particular debate, where they could contribute to research and find many research findings that can be of use to Africa, to society. What are the implications of that?
You are talking of social definition of what men and women do.
Even as academicians, we never take time to really understand the priorities of these women.
There is a difference, perhaps, with our sisters like in Latin America. Even without any schooling, people are much more awakened to their reality and will be able to push.
The gender issues and gender relations and gender analysis would be richer and more sophisticated if it included class.
Is gender and its interface with so many other factors. Because sociologically we cannot explain issues, problems, phenomena by just one factor.
And I think in that regard, we also should be open to question ourselves. What are my attitudes as far as diversity is concerned? What are my attitudes and even practice as far as equity is concerned? And probably be willing to face up to our own prejudices and probably try and have students that are inward-looking, who are reflective, critical, and who have an inspirational attitude to progress change.
What do clients look for when they are commissioning research to support public policy? From the point of view of the public policy maker is how to optimize, number one, the quality. Number two, the usefulness, which I'm also calling the practicality or the utility of the research.
As a researcher, they give you everything, you know, who to interview. You see, your discretion as a researcher is narrow.
Sometimes they come to you without any TORs, and then they ask you to develop the TORs under the assumption that you are doing the research. And then once they get the TORs, then they use them to actually ask another researcher to do the work for them.
I don't mean that you should go outside of what they're asking you, because it's very important also to respond to what they want, but to bring that extra that tells them that you're thinking outside the box, whilst they're not ruling out academics being in their little lane, as Fred said, and civil society organizations being in their little lanes. They'll be more excited if you partner together.
So if one was to ask what kind of research is likely to influence policy, all kinds of research can influence policy.
How do researchers and policy talk to each other?
I know how to research as far as my mandate goes as a lecturer. So then how do I build this extra skill that I do not have so that I can translate it to my students? I think that is a big question for me.
We start from the theory, whether it's research is science, we discuss, and then we focus on some policy issues. And most cases I tell the students, okay, now go into your groups, come up with a policy issue and tell me how you can apply this particular design or theory we have discussed.
If we ask students to design a policy, to design a research, they have to come up with their own policy problem, and we shape that.
Encourage students to look into that policy space and interrogate it, and whatever they come out with, and sometimes, well, not sometimes, they often come out with different results in the same space. Why? Because they go in with a different lens. Of course, every individual goes in with his own, her own lens, and so the outcomes are generally very different.
The issue of integrity of researchers is very important when it comes to policy impact. Almost every researcher is labeled, whether you are pro status quo or you are somebody who is aspiring for change.
But in my experience, research which is timely, research which comes at a time when the people you're trying to influence are thinking exactly what you're saying or are wondering about whatever it is you're talking about, that gets taken up. You could do research today it does not guarantee that it's going to influence policy today, because you might produce it today and it's not what the policymakers are thinking, or it's something the policymakers don't want to hear at that particular time.
The presentations and the manner in which the program is carried along makes it to be interesting. The class is engaged in discussion. Interesting discussion, you have to get a lot of revelation, and that makes students look forward to every class.
Then we have elaborative class discussions, class presentations, whereby each student is given an opportunity to go research on a given area and then come and present it. It gives us confidence, it develops our esteem, and then it develops our research and policy knowledge.
They actually emphasize participation, group work, teamwork. That is a very good method of teaching.
It's much more provocative and as such in terms of thinking or reflection of students.
I think this is a totally new of teaching, and I would request universities to actually adopt it. Our teachers were well trained. There's so much energy, there's so much enthusiasm.
It's something that is going to make all of it very innovative, because the world is now moving towards that direction.
Very exciting thing is to see professors getting excited about learning a new way of making a difference in the way they deliver their knowledge.
They're also very committed to changing the paradigm in adult education and trying to be a different kind of educator, moving from a chalk and talk approach to interactive teaching and learning, working together to hone curriculum, to improve it so it really is more what students need.
The quality that this program does deliver is something that I'm quite proud of and I'm excited about to share with our students in Botswana.
From the experience I've had and shared from here, I believe I'm leaving a better person than ever before.
MRPP has more of brought it to the light that we can change the ways we lecture students, even in other courses.
What we're expected to do is to take the message, to others.
So I would like to encourage everyone to adopt case method teaching as often as is useful. And of course, in other cases, use other methods, role plays, lectures if you have to, but please don't run away from the cases.
We are actually beginning to subvert the pedagogy of graduate training on this continent. That we are beginning to change the way graduate teaching is done, and we are starting with the MRPP.